Welcome, Kiran, to the Legacy Lounge. We are so happy to have you and join us for our Legacy Ladies series, and you are certainly a legacy. I'm sure that a lot of people say, welcome, Kiran Verma, but you're kind of like Cher or Madonna. Everybody just knows you as Kiran. And it's so impressive because you have been the 2023 recognition by James Baird for Best Chef in Texas. You've had numerous accolades, and you were inducted into the Texas Women's Hall of Fame, and you are known as the godmother of Indian cuisine. So welcome.
Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. I'm delighted to be on this podcast with you.
Thank you, Kiran. And obviously, not just you. Coming up shortly is going to be your daughter, Puja, because this is Mother-Daughter Day. My daughter Chelsea is here, and we'll just have some fun with that. But I just wanted to say that you're an iconic legend in Houston, and you have accomplished so much. But I'd like to go back to those early days when, starting and owning a restaurant is probably more challenging than most businesses. And it was probably fairly male dominated when you started in the restaurant industry here. Can you take us back to those starting days?
Yes, of course. First of all, I feel truly any kind of business you start or anything you do in life, and there is always a challenge. You can be a male or a female. It could be new business, or you are taking over somebody else's already established business. It's always going to be a challenging thing. And I do understand a lot of times people say it was male dominated industry, and now of course a lot of women are owning restaurants and Fortune 500 companies and other companies, and which is such a big achievement for all of us. And but truly, I think just because women are more resilient, we are more focused, we are more driven, so we make things happen.
You do. You make them happen, Kiran,
Yeah.
every single day.
Thank you.
What inspired you to be in the restaurant business? And it didn't start with Indian cuisine. It actually started with barbecue.
Yeah.
If that's Texas barbecue, maybe a different spin.
Yeah.
What inspired you to get into this industry?
So I came here in 1972 as a young bride. I was 18-year-old at that time. And I was very homesick. And we lived near medical center, and our neighbors told me, like I got very close to them, and they told me, really the best way to overcome homesickness would be go out of the apartment, meet people, meet friends, and make friends, get yourself submerged in American culture in some way or the other. But I was 18, I had just done second year of my college in India, and I did not have any skills to get into professional, any kind of job. So he says, he was oil and gas executive with Gulf Oil, who was our neighbor. And he says, I'm going to take you to Texas Commerce Bank. And of course, Chemical Bank, Texas Commerce Bank, and then what was it? It's Chase now, sorry.
Chase, TCB was acquired by Chase later. This is going back. I remember these.
So that was that many years back. And Ben Love was, of course, our president at that time.
A magnanimous man.
Yeah. And believe it or not, I had my office. I had my desk opposite to his office. Then I would always see him coming in and going out. And I would just admire that man, his way of treating his employees. We were at much, I would say, lower level in, he was, of course, the president of the bank. And you would go to a coffee room and he'd say, "Oh, Kiran, can I pour you a cup of coffee?" And I had never seen that kind of a behavior, in India, because India, was when I left India at that time, people kind of didn't treat every level with the same respect.
More segmentation.
Yes.
And therefore, in some ways, coming to America was liberating.
Yeah, and it
as-
was, especially
as a
my
woman.
first job, and I was, so young, and I remember writing to my dad the very first time, oh my gosh, I work next to the president of the bank, and he was pouring coffee for me, and I love his clothes, and with my first paycheck, I'm going to buy some material for your suit, so on and on. Like, I just admired him. And when you try to surround yourself with very good people, successful people, you kind of become ambitious, and you have ambitions, and not always you get to those levels, but somewhere or the other you are always learning from them. And I remember getting that job was due to my neighbor, as I was saying, he introduced me, but then I worked very hard. And the first time
Was your neighbor a banker also?
No, he was a very big executive at the Gulf Oil Company.
And he literally walked you in to TCB.
TCB lobby, and he took me for my interview.
Amazing.
What a neighbor, right?
And so you started there.
I started there, and I worked my way up.
And met some incredible Houstonians.
Yes, and then I took my first vacation to go to India, and because, I wanted to go for more than 2 weeks, the vacation was always 2 weeks, so I had to leave my job. So when I came back from India after 4 months of my stay in India, then I thought of doing a barbecue restaurant, because I thought being in your own business would give me independence, so I can come and go back to India, visit my parents, they can come. So
how old were you then, Kim?
I was literally 20-year-old.
So
22, 22,
okay,
yeah.
Couple of years in the bank.
A couple of years in the bank.
And then when you went home and came back, you were inspired to get into the restaurant business.
Right. But, I couldn't get it right away, because it takes time to think, takes time to find a location. So I thought, why don't I work somewhere before I even think of opening my restaurant, in a similar restaurant? So that's one thing I really tell everybody. If you ever want to open a restaurant, the best thing for you to is work somewhere.
Go work in there.
Always go work in that industry, restaurant, anywhere you want to work. I think that kind of tells you, is that what I want to do? Is that what I like? It has these challenges. Will I be able to, face those and deal with those things? So I worked in Luther's Barbecue before I opened my barbecue restaurant.
Oh, so that was the story, Luther's, and then your own barbecue. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
then I opened my own.
I read an interesting statistic about waiters and waitresses, that if you were to measure stress by the number of things you have to remember inside of 60 seconds, that they would be the most stressful jobs.
Yes.
Because there is so much going on, so much motion in that restaurant all the time.
And also, the waiters are from different cultures, and to learn especially if, like, we are in Houston, if it was barbecue restaurant, it'll be easy for them to understand the menu. But coming to an Indian restaurant to work, you have to understand the whole menu to be able to go back and explain to your guest about every dish. And
that's a great point.
Yeah,
it
and
really
then people have like allergies and likings, not so much likings. So you have to know, if I'm eating a korma sauce and it's made with almonds and cashews, and the guest says, I'm allergic to nuts, so he has to steer that guest away, and they have to know what each dish has. So the training of waiters is a long process.
And in your case, you decided to just start. You hadn't had any specific training as a chef or gone to a culinary school? Is that a fair statement?
That's a very fair statement.
So what inspired your menu?
So, of course, I was always interested in cooking. And when we came here, we would go to eat at Luby's or Steak and Ale in those days. Those were kind of treats when you're that young, and just not to cook at home and to go out to eat. And I remember for anniversaries or birthdays, you would go to Steak and Ale would be the max at that
That was
time.
so popular, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
And I would go and eat that food, and of course it was good, tasty food, but I'll always miss that spiciness or the punch in that food. And I'll come back home and I'll say, oh, they had this fish. And what if we put Indian spices into their kind of fish and let's see how it tastes? So I'll come and try all that at home.
That's what's so wonderful. You know, as Americans, we tend to just do salt on everything. But you are so creative with the way you employ spices. And it's hard to go back once you've tasted that. It's really wonderful.
Yeah. And we
So-
hope that every guest feels that they acquire the taste for the spices and they come back.
Yeah. So you started the barbecue place, but then you moved on to Indian because you missed the home food.
Yeah.
And what was your first restaurant? Is that the one on Westheimer?
No, the very first one was where it was called Ashiana. It was
Okay,
an
Ashiana.
existing
Yeah, I
restaurant.
read the name.
Yeah, on Dairy Ashford and Briar
Okay.
Forest. And so that was not that with the intention that I'm going to cook there. We just invested some money in that restaurant. And when I saw the way the restaurant was running, I wasn't very happy. And the people who owned the restaurant, they asked me if I wanted to buy them out. So I did that.
So you bought the restaurant from
Yeah.
an existing operator.
Yes.
And how did you come up with the funds for that?
Luckily, fortunately, my husband had good backing for me. We did have to take a loan in the beginning, and
Did you go back to TCB then, or?
Yeah, we
You
are still
did?
with
I just
Chase. Would you
wondered
and I
if
still
it
have the same
circled around.
account number as when I started
Really?
my first job. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that is incredible. So you bought that restaurant, but then you moved on to even bigger.
Yes. So, when I was in Ashiana, a lot of our guests would work in the energy corridor, but they were living
out there
inside the
west.
loop. And they would
Okay.
say, we'll come more often if you were inside the loop. And that kind of got, I got very interested in moving inside the loop. I didn't realize the rents were so high in this area. And I was quite successful where we were. But, sometimes when people keep saying the same thing over and over, and they'll say, oh, you are the chef of the caliber to be inside the loop, not stuck here. And, I just got very excited about moving there.
And now you're in Upper Kirby
Yes.
in a beautiful location.
Thank you.
And yes, it's just gorgeous. And you are doing well. You've got such a name, an iconic name in the community. And then, as part of that, your daughter joined you.
I'm very fortunate. I don't even think that I could have now carried this. Since last 4 or 5 years, she's become like the main face of the restaurant, and I'm more in the back of the house. And she's dealing with all the guests, their private events. If they're happy, she's happy with them. If they have any little issue, she's there to handle that. She trains the staff. She manages the whole.
Manages all the HR needs.
Yes.
And it's not easy. I mean, especially during and since the pandemic, it's been more difficult to find people in the service industry. There have been untold numbers of restaurants that have gone out of business. What's your secret sauce, no pun intended, to keep it all going? I mean, the mother-daughter theme is probably front and center, but how did you make it through those times when so many other restaurant owners could not?
We were very fortunate that we were asked by HEB and Central Market to provide them in their chef's corner the ready-made meals.
my-
So it said chef's corner.
It's totally
and-
separate
yeah.
from the restaurant, so
Yeah.
another distribution channel
Right.
that allowed you to get through a tough time.
Of course. And right away we took that opportunity and we hired a lot of our staff back. we hadn't let them go. We just called them back to work.
Yep.
And even if they were like servers or something, they acted like hosts, answering the phones, taking orders to go. We could still also do the takeouts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was busy?
That was very busy.
Yeah, great.
Luckily, we
Good.
had a very loyal clientele. They would buy a lot of food every day. We were actually sometimes cooking more than we would be cooking if there was no pandemic, because there was so much
Really?
demand for the food.
So we're past that
Yeah.
in terms of what you're doing. You're just kind of very stable.
Yeah.
And what is it about the Houston restaurant community that excites you? And I know you've thought about other cities, and I want to talk about that too. But what do you like about the Houston culinary scene?
I feel now it's Houston culinary scene is so wide. It has so much respect for different cuisines. When I came here, nobody even knew what Indian food was, what Indian cuisine was. The, Indian culture was not easily acceptable, in the sense, not the people, but like the food, the way people dressed up to go to work. We looked different, just because how we dressed up. So it was a little bit challenging to get settled in the mainstream. And now I just feel like it's so easy, and especially being an energy hub, people are traveling outside US, outside Houston, and they go to, let's say, India, and they go to London or anywhere.
True.
And they get exposed to Indian cuisine, fine Indian cuisine. And when they come back, they love those flavors that what they ate when they were traveling is available here.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. And we're such a diversified
We are.
city.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that the number of Indian restaurants since you came into the market has exploded compared to when you started.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
But I feel like opening new restaurants is really good for us and has been good for us, because people in general now are more aware of Indian cuisine, more aware of even fine cuisine,
Right.
Like they are not afraid to go to a fine restaurant and think what kind of food there is. They are already prepared to spend that kind of money when they go to a restaurant.
Well, we're fortunate. We're in a city with a lot of engineers and a lot of professionals, and especially if two people are working, they can get out there.
Yes.
But it has been challenging in the entire food economy. I mean, prices have gone up. How do you handle the food price increases as a restaurant owner?
So
It's been tough, hasn't it?
It has been, and the prices are very high. I feel the wages are high. The whole cost of doing business is so much more higher. And
And if you have to borrow money, even higher because of high interest rates.
Right. Everything is like almost sometimes inhibited to get into a small business. But fortunately, because of the length of my time in the business, being here for 27 years,
Yeah.
we have such a loyal clientele. Day after day, we see so many similar faces, same faces. And also, like, since Pooja and me my daughter and me are together, she is also, and also she's from finance background, she's watching everything very closely. And I try
That's
to
really great.
Yeah, like she controls the labor hours, payroll cost. I control more on the back of the house, like
Food
linen.
quality. Oh, okay.
That's a big cost also. Every day is linen. And then you have food cost, food wastage. You want to make sure, somebody is taking care of taking in the inventory, putting it properly, moving like the older stuff in the front so nothing goes bad. We watch very closely.
I know you do.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, as we've come in, I don't see the prices going up really. And yet you guys, I know, are withstanding higher costs of inventory all the time. So you've done something incredible.
Thank you.
Have you thought about, I read about your interest maybe in trying Vegas. Where did that come from? And is there anything on the horizon like that? Are you Houston? I mean, I know you're
think
Houston
for me,
steady.
Houston would be the place. But of course,
Okay.
Pooja keeps saying, Mom, if we ever need to expand, I would love to go to Vegas and do that. I think just because it's such a large scale and such
Yeah.
a glamorous city.
Right.
And, I'm so happy that you all think this restaurant is pretty, but we even have a vision to make a more glamorous restaurant.
do?
Yeah. But
Boy, that
if
wouldn't-
she gets into it, I'll stay behind and I'll support
love
her.
it. Yeah.
This would be other way around now. I won't start it. It would be her starting.
I love it, and Chelsea and Pooja can talk about that a little bit. But so, is in terms of all you've achieved. I mean, are there any hills left to climb for you? You've done it all. You've been acknowledged and recognized by so many different, with so many different awards, and
I'm very fortunate to be recognized by my peers, our guests, media. But I feel like I still have this desire that one day Indian cuisine should be at this, like a mainstream cuisine, and it should be at the level where Mexican and Italian is.
well, it is mainstream in our household. I can tell you that. So, regarding your menu, I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about Nanza, and I want to talk about the high teas that you've begun. I think it's been a few years now
Yes.
for sure, but it's a unique style. Can you talk first about Nanza?
So, right before the pandemic, we had taken over a small pizza restaurant. They were actually, it was called Medici. They were in business for, I think, a little over 6 months, and then they couldn't sustain that business. So, that space was available, and more than the space, my heart and soul was in making our Indian breads called naans in their ovens, because I always loved those ovens, and I loved the fact that they were
The
wood
pizza
burning
ovens.
Yeah,
Wood burning pizza ovens,
Right.
okay.
There is no gas, no electricity, just pure wood. So one day, even like when they were in business, I took one little bit of my dough and I made friends with my neighbor, and we went and we experimented, and it came out really good. So I kept on thinking, if we take over that, I'm going to transfer all our breads there, and I'll create some specialty breads. And unfortunately, of course, they went out, and since the space was available, I took over that space, and it took us almost about 7-8 months to get redecorated. But we built our kitchen around those two ovens. When you enter,
Okay.
those two ovens. So now, actually, the load of work and load of cooking in our main kitchen is half, because I brought the breads, all the seafood, all the chicken into these ovens. They cook
Wow.
so beautiful with 900 degrees air temperature and 700 on the stone. You can make the
I am
best,
getting hungry right
best,
now. That's,
best nanza you can think of. I just love cooking in there.
and you've got such variety
Thank
in
you.
the different one. It's a pizza like.
Yeah.
But so many different varieties that you can't find in a traditional pizza shop.
I just think because, it's so new to me, I was so passionate about creating a different combinations. So I did a little bit research, like what cheeses go with what kind of
With what?
proteins, what kind of veggies would stay well on warm pizza, what wouldn't look wilted if I put some salad
Okay.
greens on top. So I did a little bit of research on it, and then I just got too passionate, and my 80% of focus is right now still in the new side of my nanzas.
Do you have a favorite one?
Smoking duck.
Oh, that sounds good. What else is on? I mean, of course, you had me at duck.
Yeah.
But then what after that?
I do, we make candied orange peel,
Ooh.
and people just love having
That's
that.
wonderful.
And a little bit of wild mushrooms on it.
Great,
Duck
great.
mushrooms. And
Okay, so now let's talk about the high tea.
okay. So we have been doing this for almost 15 years.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's on Saturday and Sunday in this location.
Okay.
And it starts at 1 o'clock. And the menu and we have live harpist, and the same harpist.
Beautiful.
She's been playing beautiful harp, and we are grateful to her for that many years. She comes on Saturday exactly at 1:00. It starts. It's a 3-course tea. It starts with Darjeeling, and I do a mushroom vulavant. So it's wild mushrooms, of course, again cooked in our wood fire burning ovens with lots of garlic, little balsamic.
Wow.
And I will put it on the house-made vulavants and with a fig chutney. And that goes with our
Lovely.
Darjeeling tea. And
Lovely.
the next course would be like 5 different kind of small bite-sized sandwiches, or I would say 2 bite-size.
Okay.
And they are like crab. It's curried crab, so we have fresh curry leaves. I'll make a little cream in that and put the crab, and then make our own gujirs and put the crab in the gujir. And then smoked salmon, English cucumber, of course. And we also have tandoori chicken with mango chutney.
Lovely. And the third course?
And third course is scones with, these are house-made scones.
Lovely.
With our mixed berry jam. We make our own jam. And clotted cream. We make our own clotted cream.
So there's
also.
some tradition there, but this is not your grandmother's high tea.
Yeah, it's not.
For an American, any American looking for this is really a luxurious high tea with a lot of variety. That's great.
Thank you. We do have very talented 2 pastry chefs, and they make all
2
these
pastry chefs
Yeah.
on site.
on site all the time, and
Wow.
they make all these petit fours for the tea also, including, of course, all our desserts.
When you started, was there any mentor or anyone you looked up to in the industry that you relied on, or did you fly solo pretty much?
I, of course, because it was an Indian restaurant, there weren't any very big, fine Indian
okay.
dining restaurants. But I was always very, very fond of Tony Valone. I
Okay.
would love to go to
Another
Tony.
classic
Yeah.
in
and
Houston
I
legacy.
actually would even tell him, I would say, if I ever opened an Indian restaurant, it would be Tony's of, Indian food. Like,
That's so great.
it was, he would always laugh, and when I opened, he would come and visit, and he'd say, and I could never call him Tony. He was actually my age or even younger, and I would always call him Mr. Valone, because I felt like he just deserved that respect. He was the mentor for so many of us, And
in
he
those early days, right?
Yeah,
70s,
the-
80s, he
right.
was really the act to follow.
Yes, he was the act to follow, and I did follow a lot of his ways of doing business, and wanted to be as fine as him at that time. And he would always say, "You have exceeded me, so you can't call me Mr. Valone." And we always played on this.
Well, you're so gracious. But as you look back, you've gotten advice over the years from some people. What is the best advice or the worst advice? Whichever one, you want to highlight, because sometimes we learn from the messages that
Yeah.
are proved wrong.
Of course, and I'm a very open-minded person, and I also make a lot of friends who are our guests. So, and I can tell them if I'm having a rough day, or I am doing something totally new. Or one day I remember
That's
I was just
fun.
very down and wasn't feeling too good. I think it was right after I had my knee replacement, and one of our guests. They are father-son actually in business together. They have a
Okay.
big company where the father has established, and now 2 sons are helping and almost taking over the business.
In the restaurant or a different business?
Totally
Yeah, and
a
it
different.
doesn't
It's a
matter.
pipeline
Yeah.
business,
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
great. Okay.
And so I said, I'll be so happy someday if Pooja can come and join us. And this is just when Pooja wasn't working with us. But I said, after me, of course, I'm going to give it to her, and she can run it. She'll be very good at it. They said, why are you saying after you? It should be when you are still working so hard. She needs to be with you. She needs to learn from you. She needs to work side by side.
So you
And
can pass the baton,
Yeah.
and she can watch you and see
that
it.
advice, like I told her right away that I do need you to join us right away. Because they said otherwise you're not doing her a favor by giving a business which she wouldn't
She
even
walks
know
into without knowing anything about.
Right. And may not be, may not be a gift, it'll be a burden, like if she doesn't know how to run this, she's not used to all these hours, she's not used to these people. And I think within a couple of years she just took over the business like as if she was born with it.
I can see why that was great advice, though, because it is a
That was
different
one of
world.
the best advice, I
And
think.
yeah, great. And we'll hear more about that when Chelsea talks with Pooja, because I know she brought finance, which
Yeah.
was really great to bring to the table. But family and business has its own set of challenges sometimes.
Yes.
Are there any unique challenges that you feel that you've learned to face or overcome in a family business setting? And I know you have a positive outlook, so whatever it is, you are going to take that hurdle. But sometimes they're unique challenges. Have you found that?
Yes, it's of course being a mother and daughter, it's the closest relationship out of any relationship in the world, I think. And, when your child is working by your side, you're always thinking that they shouldn't see the worst of the business, and you sometimes try to handle those situations yourself. Wow. And I feel like if I had somebody from outside, I'll just say, oh, we are equal partners. You need to know this is happening. Now, so many times, those difficulties I try to resolve by myself. She will find out that I'm quiet or there is something bothering me, and she'll dig into it and ask me what happened yesterday, or, sometimes I'll say, I won't tell. These are small employee problems, and, I'll deal with it. But I think somebody else would have been like, okay, let me talk to them and, see what they can help me with.
That is so astute, because I do think that all of us, all mothers, but especially business owners, when you take your kids in, you want it to be better for them, and you might want to shield them from some of the things and protect them. But there has to be a dose of reality, or you end up not having the success
of course
that you need together and as a family. So that you put that really well. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So now, in terms of where you gather inspiration, are there any particular publications, any books that you find to be really helpful?
I think on a daily basis, I literally open my email as soon as I open my eyes, and I love reading New York Times, and they have beautiful recipes in one of their New York Times cooking publication.
Okay.
Always
so look there for recipes.
Yeah, look there. They're very accurate, and they're very creative. They're very traditional. They're written by some of the Indian authors also, cooks. Very, very good. I just think...
But you're a chef. Could we even attempt them?
Yes, of course. I do attempt them. I
All
just say, oh, that's a great idea. I'm doing this way. Let me try it. Maybe this is a faster way. Or maybe this is a lighter way to do something. You always, when you read something of your own field from somebody else, you have a different perspective of what you are doing or what you know. And then I brought this book to show you, one of my all-time favorites, and I recommend anybody who's interested in food, Denny Meyer's, is the Setting the Table. I love this book.
So what is the gist of Setting the Table? Is it about the restaurant industry in particular, or is it about life?
No, it's totally about the restaurant industry and also how he has dealt with it. And, sometimes when you read somebody's book or about somebody, you find yourself in that person. And I have read this book so many times.
Really?
And I'm saying, we haven't met. How does he do exactly what I'm thinking?
How does he know?
How does, it's so, how am I so connected to this person? How we are two different cultures. He has an empire of restaurants. I mean, it's one location, single restaurant, family owned. How is he doing exactly what I think should be done, or how am I following him? I love this book.
So he speaks to you, okay,
Yeah.
setting the table. So
Setting
we'll
the
have to
table.
remember that.
How to deal with the staff, what challenges you can have.
So it probably would be good for any business owner.
Anybody.
Okay, and even someone in executive position who's working and trying to manage people.
Of course.
Because, you want to give them a great experience. But, there are bumps in the road.
Of course.
Sometimes. So.
There's another good one for the restaurant owners, I would think, would be Kitchen Confidential.
But Kitchen Confidential, so I can recommend
Yeah.
that, particularly to folks that are foodies.
Who's the chef who committed suicide?
Oh, Anthony Bourdain.
Anthony Bourdain. Yeah, I met him here in Houston.
Did you?
Yeah, I went.
Did he come to Kiran's?
No, he didn't. He actually had come when the book came out, Kitchen Confidential, and at one of the, I think, Salatop, he was doing the book signing, and that's when I met him. And
What a sad loss.
Yeah.
Just a really intriguing person.
I just
In
read
addition
about
to
him
being a
more and
great-
more and more,
yeah.
and how he would have just enriched so many more lives if he was still alive, I feel.
Mm-hmm. And his biography is still quite prominent on
Very.
and streaming.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't, that you'd like to just share with our viewers?
Not really. I think we have gone quite in what I wanted to say. I think you asked, and it was a great conversation. It's a great thing to be sitting next to you and talking to you and seeing your own business here. And I know you and your daughter are together, Chelsea, and you are
We are.
together in it, which is such a great thing. She has a great mentor like you.
Well, I believe that we're very fortunate. And, every day is different as a business owner, as
Yes.
you know.
Of course.
But I am so lucky for the support of my daughter. And so I'm glad for she and Pooja to have a chance to speak. But I've admired you from a distance. I've even enjoyed more getting to be up close and personal. You are just a magnanimous personality and such a successful business owner. So thank you for joining us at the Legacy Lounge.
Thank you so much for having me. Enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran.
Pooja, welcome to the Legacy Lounge. Thank you for joining us today. We're so pleased to have both you and your mother on site here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us and being part of the Legacy Ladies, series today. We were just so excited to talk to both your mother and yourself. I know they talked a little bit, my mother and Kiran, about the business, and now I'm excited to talk about your background and what you bring to the business. So,
Oh, thank you. I'm so
Yeah.
happy to be here.
yeah, well, you have had such experience across the board professionally. You have been on the financial compliance, even a little investment banking, from what I understand.
Yes.
How does all that bring you to here and to the Houston culinary scene, other than the obvious?
I think what brings everyone back to Houston, which is family. I think that's what that's I think what eventually just brought me back to Houston is just the fact that I'm from here, born and raised. My parents are here, and so as you said, I did do investment banking for a couple of years in New York. Loved New York. Didn't want to leave.
We both had a similar experience. Yeah, I was doing investment banking in New York as well.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so what type of investment banking were you doing?
So I was with Bear Stearns.
Okay, got it.
In the heyday, doing private placements and pipes. And it was industry agnostic, but we did a lot of healthcare, tech, biotech,
Yeah.
those types of companies that were raising that kind of capital.
Okay, great. And you had been the general manager at Kiran's before that point, right?
Yes.
So did you always know you were going to go into the world and you knew you wanted to come back, or was this an exploratory journey?
Actually, I have to correct myself. I was general manager at Kiran's after that.
After that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I was in New York and then came back to Houston and was trying to figure out, what to do, and joined a small boutique bank here. And then, saw some of the challenges, heard about some of the challenges that, my mom I thought was having with the restaurant at the time. So I joined her at our old location, Kiran's on Westheimer.
Yeah.
And I was there for 3 years
Okay.
as a general manager. And I always knew I wanted to go to grad school.
Yeah.
Because when I was at Bear Stearns, I was around all these associates, MDs, my colleagues had all, gone to grad school. And then even at the end of my 2-year time as an analyst, they gave us a prep course for the GMAT. The idea was that they supported our path to grad school. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I still want to go to grad school, but should I do finance after that? Should I do hospitality? If I go to grad school, I'll figure it out. So I ended up going to Rice.
Okay, yeah.
I'm getting my MBA at Rice. And while I was at Rice, I fell in love with the oil and gas industry.
Yeah. You
And-
have spent a lot of time there. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
So it was, I think I tell people that and they're like, really? The oil and gas industry? And I'm like, I know, but it was energy independence. It was the shale
Yeah.
revolution. It was fracking. And it was this industry that I thought was so stagnant and boring. Suddenly I found exciting.
You literally think of it like the dinosaur. It's literally a dinosaur.
Right. But it was intriguing to me. And having stepped away from the old location at that time, I was like, okay, so I think my mom can run it without me. Let me pursue this career in oil and gas, and I'll do
Yeah.
something finance related.
Yeah.
Because I had the finance background in oil and gas. So I did just that, and I ended up at a small company called Zarvona, and it was a finance role, and I also had to do compliance for them. And in that time period, we opened another restaurant. We left the old location, opened at the new location, and on a few occasions, our office manager, quit with very short notice. So I went in and I helped my mom with payroll.
So you were still you were aiding with some of the setup of this new restaurant, even though you were
Very little. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say I was, really just focused on, but, with family business, everyone's in the business.
Everyone
You're hearing about
from
the business,
birth, like,
at
yeah.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're hearing about the business on the weekends.
inevitable, yeah.
So, but, I felt like everything was going fine, but then having to come in on a few nights and have to do payroll because we didn't have an office manager to do it, because no matter what, staff has to get paid on time.
right.
On those occasions, I looked at my mom's desk and I saw all these messages of guess she hadn't called back, things she needed to follow up on, things she hadn't responded to. And I just thought, how can I be working with somebody else when my mom is, struggling to manage all of this? And that was all what I saw as
And
lost
not
business
due to any
and
failure,
lost,
but
It's
an
just
ability. You knew if you could be present, you could help her optimize her time, and everyone find success together.
Yes, and hopefully change the trajectory, because I felt like we were just going along like this, and we needed to go like this.
Yeah.
So I told my boss at Zarvona that I'm not mentally here right now. I'm at the restaurant, and I need to figure out how to do things better.
Yeah.
So he understood and he supported me leaving, and after wrapping things up in about 6 weeks, I joined my mom in the business full time, and that was 2019.
And
But-
right before.
Right before. And interestingly enough, I would have left regardless with the pandemic, because as I'm sure you know, even not being in the industry yourself, I mean, it's been such a game changer
Right.
for hospitality.
Yep. It completely revolutionized the way these businesses operate.
Exactly.
Especially for
restaurants.
culinary. Yep.
Yes. The way dine-in happens, the way takeaway is happening, all of it. So I've been with my mom in this new location since 2019.
Well, I'm sure your mother is really grateful to have your skill sets and your passion for the business. I had a very similar experience, and I think every employer understands that. When I went to my previous employer, it was like, I need to go help my mom. That's our family business. That speaks to me, and I know your mother must be very grateful to have your acumen on the business side.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to have her.
Yeah.
It's she's truly my North Star. So
that's beautiful.
I just have to, wherever she is, I need to be.
Well, you guys are obviously a power team. I wanted to dive into a little bit. You talked about doing oil. You said your master's at Rice?
Yes, my MBA.
Yes, your MBA. What was that experience like? And so what do you feel that how did you take your master's experience and your experience in gas, and how did you parlay that, and how did that apply to this next chapter of Kiran's?
Oh, well, getting my MBA, that was an incredible experience. I tell everyone it was a complete paradigm shift.
Yeah.
I did my undergrad at UT and then had about a 7-year
We're apparently
gap.
sworn enemies. I went to OU, but that's okay.
We can still be friends.
We'll still be friends.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The best of friends. And so 7 years, so loved UT, had a great time. Who won't have a good time? You're in
great
Austin
school, yeah.
between the ages of 18 and 22, no responsibility. I'm having a great time.
Yeah, it's a good time.
And then, you start working, and, like I said, I was always then geared towards grad school. Mm-hmm. And what, I had a great time at Rice. I took my education a lot more seriously in grad school. You're older. Mm-hmm. You appreciate the time you have, that freedom to not have to work and to have the financial and emotional support to be in school and really just study and hopefully do well and think about what you want to do. And it's the same pressure at that time, that you get the highly coveted internship, between your first and second year.
Right.
And then hopefully have a great job after. And I remember when I was at UT, I always, being in the business school, there was a lot of pressure to get a great internship every summer. And then I remember finishing school and talking to someone, and I was like, oh, what'd you do over the summer? And they said they went to Italy and learned Italian and learned how to cook. And I was like, well, why was I at Compaq?
Wait,
why wasn't I in Italy?
What was desk?
Yes. So I thought, okay, between my first and second year, I'm going to do something outside the box. I'm going to do something that I may never get the chance to do again. Mm-hmm. So I did an internship in D.C. With President Obama.
Wow.
I just thought I'll never get to, do something like this.
Yeah.
And I did that for the summer, and then I thought I'm going to hopefully get the job of my dreams after I graduate. That took a lot longer because I didn't do the highly coveted internship. I did the passion internship.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time to get, to the job I eventually loved at Zarvona.
Yeah.
And then I think, so having the educational background, the professional background, I think all of that you can bring really to anything. And then with the restaurant, like in your MBA, you're thinking about marketing. I took a couple of marketing courses. So I was thinking about that all the time. The principles, in marketing and what attracts consumers. You think about that, like how things are priced. I remember this great example my marketing professor gave. And, he said, well, this woman had she had a jewelry business, and she had 3 types of diamonds. And she could not sell the highest priced diamond. Everyone kept going to the middle diamond.
Yeah.
And he said, what do you think she did to sell the highest priced diamond? She created an even higher priced diamond.
Yes.
Right? So I would think about these things.
It's the one I'd want, but I'd buy now the old higher priced diamond.
Because now you're like, okay, I know I'm not getting the most expensive one, but I'll settle for the second most expensive one, and that was the one
like
that was the one she needed to move. So thinking about all those principles, I remember the other story or anecdote he shared is like with Apple, the white earphones or the AirPods or whatever it is. Do you remember in the ads, everything would be a certain color, and then the white would stand out?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so when we did our to-go bags at the restaurant, I asked my mom to do a white handle. Because I was like, maybe then that handle will stand out against the black bag.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, like everything I was learning, I wanted to just close my notes and run to the restaurant. I was like, Mom, we need to have a strategy. a mission, a vision, like everything like the core of what you're learning. I was, thinking about Porter's 5 Forces. It's a business school term, but just barriers to entry, competition, like it's everything you learn. I think I was able to then apply to the business and think about it in a theoretical sense too, and not, we were doing different types of desserts, and I was like, Mom, we can't be everything to everyone. This is where the strategy and the vision and the mission come in,
Right.
So we have to really think about, our customer.
And what an incredible experience to be able to be in an educational setting at that time, and to be able to apply those things
right
in
away,
real time,
right away,
to understand how you're shaping your business for the future.
Exactly.
What an incredible.
So that was great, and thinking about even pricing, like the menu items, cost plus pricing.
Right.
They're like, that's a type of pricing. So but then also looking at your competitors, thinking about competition. My marketing professor would tell us, your competition is not, you don't define it. It's your customer defines your competition. It's where they're choosing. So I would sit there and be like, oh, the other Indian restaurants are our competition. But they weren't necessarily our competition. Our competition were the restaurants where our customers, or where customers were dining that night, as opposed to coming to Kiran's. So just think all of those things. So I think I was able to bring, that, to my job here at the restaurant. And then, of course, with oil and gas, I mean, a lot of the structure, the finance skills that you continue to develop, bringing that to the restaurant too. My mom will always be like, "You're so good at Excel." I'm like, I know.
You have to be in that industry, but
yeah, I know exactly.
But I will also say, you going back to the marketing side, but it's also branding. You and Kiran have taken such a fine touch to how you develop the aesthetic of this brand. Your location is beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely stunning. I know you guys, have even more visions of grandeur, but this location it's comforting, but it has culture, and it has history, and anybody that walks in truly feels like an extended part of the family. So I want to give you hats off to what you've been able to accomplish there.
Thank you. We try.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I mean,
you guys say you want even more design. You said you want to build you have more ideas about design.
I know. I mean,
it's hard to stop, right?
Because what we were talking about earlier, but guests will be like, well, you should open in Sugarland and open in the Woodlands and open all, and I started telling my mom, if we open, we should open in Vegas.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about this. It seems like
it's just stream of consciousness thinking. It's really, there's nothing happening there, but I think,
but
we've been to Vegas.
But it goes back to you to say, okay, what do I value and why? It's a good experiment to consider,
And just, we've been there now a few times, and we haven't come across an Indian restaurant on the Strip or in any of the hotels and resorts there. So and there's such an international market, and certainly Vegas guests are looking for an experience and willing to pay for an experience. So I think and you could create something really beautiful, I think, in one of their hotels. So I think we just think about that.
Yeah. Well, that is a key part of your title, is operations and development. So where do you see Kiran's, if not on the Vegas Strip in the immediate future, but maybe further down the road? What is next on your docket for developing Kiran's?
So I think with development, I'm just always thinking about partnerships outside of the restaurant, outside of the brick and mortar. It's what other businesses are similar to ours, aligned with ours, would attract the same consumer, and it makes sense for us to do something with them. Also doing things that hopefully will drive business back to the brick and mortar. So thinking a lot more about retail.
Yeah.
What products we can put on the shelves.
Give me some examples of that. Yeah.
Like our tea.
Yeah. So you are selling your tea.
We sell it in the restaurant.
Yes.
And we are hoping to get it in especially some Texas grocery stores.
Well, I would be your first customer.
Thank you.
It is such a special tea recipe. So I'm not surprised at all. That would be such a brilliant collaboration.
Well, thank you. So that's how I think about the partnerships and growing the business and strategy.
Yeah. So the goal is to keep increasing and expanding the Kiran's name.
Exactly.
And that's something that you're developing now. That's really exciting.
And like I was saying, it may not necessarily be opening more restaurants, but just continuing to hopefully do well in our location, increase awareness, and build the traffic back to the restaurant we have.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and as you say, it is just loved by the entire city. I mean,
Oh,
Houston
thank you.
still being the most diverse, largest city in the nation. I think there are some smaller cities that are take that mantle, but in terms of the largest city, Houston is still number one. I'm sure you've gotten interest from everyone, and you speak 3 languages. You speak Hindi and Spanish and English. How has that helped in bringing in different types of business and your business model?
Well, it's been great. You know, I learned Spanish in high school. You know, because we had to learn a foreign language, and so I was
Right.
like, well, it's either Spanish or French, and I think I'll get more out of Spanish in
Yeah.
Houston, so I'll learn Spanish.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed learning Spanish so much. I had a great teacher. I took it for 4 years, and she would play the Spanish soap operas, you know, on quiet days.
Yeah.
And then I was able to practice it in the restaurant, and I think the staff likes that I can say certain things in Spanish, and
Yeah.
it's helped with employment. Certainly, when we have potential candidates, you know, come in and they're looking for a job and they don't speak English, and I can, you know, translate at least the basic things. I think language is one of the great connectors. You know, sometimes people who speak multiple languages, they'll ask, in what language do you dream, or in what language do you express love? You know, because so much is things can be lost in translation. There's certain things that you just can connect with people speaking their home language. And I feel like sometimes, you know, just if it's a guest from South Mexico or South America or Spain, and just being able to say, you know, bienvenidos and muchas gracias para todos. But then also our Indian guests, you know, being able to refer to all the dishes in the way they're used to hearing them referred to in India.
Yeah.
I think that helps connect with guests. I think it's nice.
You've achieved a literal melting pot, truly, of
it's
these
good.
different cultures and these different traditions. And I agree, if someone can connect through their own culture to what your culture is doing, it's especially around food, that's a really special
So
way to connect.
it's a different level then, and then being able to, so you know, guests will come and if they don't speak fluent English, you know, I could either try to say some of the words in Spanish, say some of the words in Hindi, connect to maybe the older generation guests who come and they bring their parents, their grandparents who don't speak as good of English, and you can speak to them and explain things to them or understand their needs.
Yeah.
That's so important, to understand their needs. When they're vegetarian, but it's a more stricter vegetarian diet.
Right,
There's a
right.
subsect of Hinduism called Jainism, and they can't have onion and garlic. But
Wow.
so being able to modify the food and understand their needs. And with a Spanish-speaking guest, understanding their needs. You know, what are they craving? Which
Yeah.
meat, which flavor, spicy. So it's been great. I love it, and I hope to just improve my Spanish. You know, the first thing to go is the conjugation.
I know, right? And then,
So I hope to keep practicing and improving the Spanish and learning how to count better in Hindi. But
well, that's incredible. So
you.
what you are talking about, these day-to-day operations, what is the most common thing you are either struggling with on a day-to-day basis, or what are the most difficult parts of day-to-day?
I think the most difficult part of the day-to-day is just the consistency. You know, because
Maintaining the mantle that you guys have set.
and when I say inconsistency, it's really inconsistency in the staffing, making sure that everyone who's scheduled comes to work. But then also, because this business, you never know when it's going to be busy.
Right.
Being able to call backup resources if needed.
Yes.
So managing that part of it on a daily basis, you will never know whether your Monday is going to be a good Monday or a busy Monday or a slow Monday.
Yeah,
You know, and then just so first making sure everyone who's scheduled can come in. If they can't, do we have a backup? oh, is it busier than normal? So that part of it, I think, is the most stressful aspect,
Yeah.
is the managing the team component.
Yes.
And being able to meet the demands for that day.
Has it been particularly more difficult after COVID?
I think that's hard for me to say now because I wasn't in the industry for very, very long prior to COVID,
That's
so I
true.
can't say.
Yeah.
But I think we're now getting back to a place where people who really have a passion for the industry are coming to the industry or staying in the industry. What happened, really, we saw a lot of at the onset of the pandemic, and for a while, is that very talented people were leaving, whether it's a talented bartender, a food runner, a server, because they wanted the flexibility of driving for Uber
Right, right.
or doing pop-ups on their own schedule. And so you were losing people and it was like, oh, you have this great talent and you don't want to be in the restaurant. But
Yeah.
they didn't want the set schedule.
Yeah.
And so now I think, fortunately, we're coming back to a place where everyone who has that talent or that interest, and even if it's for a short term, this is something they're trying out. They're in this industry and they're here to be successful.
That's really
So that's
exciting.
been great to
Yeah.
see that come back in the last couple of years.
And it seems like that has been coming back across the board. I'm hearing that from other restaurant owners. When you look at the Houston landscape, I mean, it has just been bustling and is really achieving national recognition.
It is.
Including the Michelin, which I might want to
Yes.
get into. I'm sure that's a whole can of worms. But what do you see other Houston restaurant owners doing that you have applied? Is there anything exciting that is happening as a culinary trend that you're intrigued by and you'd want to start applying with Kiran's?
I mean, I think we're just looking to see what chefs are doing everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it's Houston, it's outside of the U.S. We're looking at what chefs are doing in India. We get a lot of inspiration from that. We're seeing what trends are occurring over there, and then of course here you're seeing what other restaurants are doing with cocktails.
And we'll have to also talk about your incredible wine list.
Oh, thank you.
But that has taken years and years of cultivation and
We cannot take any credit for it. We had a partner in the business with us, and his name was Dr. Jagdish Sharma, and he passed away a little over a year ago. But he was
sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Him and his wife were long-standing friends of ours, and he a neurologist by training, and wine was his passion.
Yeah.
So he helped us put together our wine program, and we started getting awards of excellence by Wine Spectator, which was incredible to get that year after year. And then finally, last year, we got the Best of Award of
Wow.
Excellence, which is the next level up.
Yes.
So that was great. That was great, and we got that for the first time right before he passed away. So it was so nice that he got to see that
I'm so
and be a part of
glad.
that. So we're very proud of the wine list, and he said that before he passed that he's put a wine list that he thinks that we can have for the next 5 years, and we're like, oh, I think we're gonna have to tweak it a little, but we try to keep it true to the integrity of the program that he wanted,
Yeah.
and then just try to grow it a little bit from there.
Oh.
And looking at trends there, like what kind of wines are our guests, are they looking now at more old world wines versus, our wine list really for the most part was very New World centric, very
Yeah.
California heavy.
Uh-huh.
And now looking at, the Italian wines, the French wines, and more of those.
Wow.
So people are looking at, South Africa,
Yeah.
the wines there. So
Well, that's what I've just found incredible, whether it is your wines or whether it is this high tea and the marriage of English culture and Indian
Yes.
culture. Once again, I just keep saying melting pot because truly it's an extraordinary blend of everything we hold dear in Houston. So, I mean, that's incredible.
well,
Congratulations
thank you.
on that.
Thank you. And I think
Yeah.
that's really what, my mom tried to create, is that she was like, it is going to be a fine dining Indian restaurant, but, by way of Houston.
I love that.
Making the most of what Houston has to offer with the seafood, with the produce, and adding our spices, our flavors to that.
Yeah.
So I think that's what differentiates us from from other Indian restaurants
Yeah, well,
and other
truly.
restaurants. So
Amazing. Well,
Thank
you
you.
have been, I'm going to ask a similar question to what Deb asked Kiran. You obviously are a mother-daughter relationship. What are the amazing elements of that and also the obstacles of that working dynamic?
I mean, I would say really it's all great. I can't, I really, I truly mean that. It's all
Yeah.
great. You know, we get to do some of the good cop, bad cop stuff, which is fun. You know, we'll do that with the staff.
Uh-huh.
And then, I'll be like, I know she said this, but what she really meant was, and I know, you're having this and this going on, and I'll take them off
Yes.
to the side. Sometimes when she's really upset or I'm really upset, one of us helps put things into perspective. That's very helpful.
Yes.
I would say, I think when it comes to difficult things or some of the challenges, she and I can get laser focused on something and maybe lose the forest for the trees.
I
You
think
know, when
that's-
it's something that's bothering us, then both of us is bothering both of us, and we're both in it, and we're both upset,
Yeah.
and nothing can go right. Just because we're such a team.
Right. Well,
And-
and you care naturally what the other person cares about, and then
Right.
it becomes a bit of a cycle. So
Yes.
what do you do when you recognize that you are both heads down into this? What are your approaches to get out of that?
I think we just lift our heads up, we eat something.
Good
we
first.
we're like,
first.
okay, we need to eat. We need to
Yeah.
have a cup of chai.
Yes.
Maybe sit outside.
Yes.
We have the patio. We'll go sit outside. We'll take a breather.
Yes.
We'll just go down to the Galleria, do some retail therapy, maybe.
Yeah.
Just get away. That's
Perspective.
Get
It's-
away.
get away.
for just a few minutes. Even if it's just a few minutes, a half hour, whatever it is, just to get away, and then we come back.
Yeah.
So
And when
it
you
just-
have two smart, passionate women at the helm, it's sometimes you think that you need to grind through that problem, but the truth is, you just sort of need to get away.
maybe get a little bit more perspective.
Yeah,
Just
get on the same page in another forum, in another, setting, and then you can go back and dive into really effectively.
Exactly.
That's really wonderful.
And not let it just be all about the emotions at that moment.
Yeah.
And then maybe be more like, now what are the steps we need to take to address it?
Yeah.
Take the emotion away from it.
Right. And you have another similarity, or as I see it, that both of our mothers are the face, the names of this
Yes,
brand,
yes,
quite literally. And
yes.
then we are running operations
Yes.
and working to sort of support and keep the trains moving. So you feel that's an accurate description. And what are the wonderful or hard parts of that specific role of, making sure everything goes
Yeah.
line and keeping the brand up?
I mean, I think it's great. It's and I took that and we played around with it, because now our retail line is going to be under Kiran's daughter.
Okay, that's
Because
yeah.
for in the old location, guests would come in and they wouldn't remember my name, or they'd want to introduce me and they'd be like, "That's the daughter," So I never had a name. And it was like, oh, so then so we called the line Kiran's daughter.
I love that.
And I'm completely fine with it.
Yeah.
It's I think
Because it's meant with love. It's not
Yes,
meant to,
it is.
yeah.
I think sometimes though it certainly, and I think that maybe with more time I will have more confidence stepping out of my mom's shadow a little bit more. But I think also because it's a restaurant and she's the executive chef, I'm
Yes.
happy that it's her name.
Yes.
It's all her.
And just because it's her name doesn't mean that it's not, building a family legacy.
Right.
You know what I
right.
mean? Yeah.
And I think people get that.
Yeah.
That you take on, you take after your parents, you take on whatever they've built, and it's their name. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And it can still be 100% yours.
Yeah.
And I think because that mother-daughter relationship is so special, that dynamic is so special, I love being able to support her at this time. And I just feel like you've supported me my whole life in every way, from carrying me for 9 months to giving birth, to holding my hand, through all the difficult times. This is the very least I can do is to, to drive you somewhere.
Yeah.
to help you get the computer set up.
Yeah.
That's the very, very least I can do.
Yeah.
So I love all of it.
Yeah.
I tease her that, to use another mother-daughter analogy, I tell her that she's Kim and I'm Chris. And I'm like, you just go out there and give me my 10%.
No, I mean, I think what we share is we both have tremendous respect for our mothers, and it's an honor to help uplift that legacy.
Absolutely.
And I'm honored by that, and I'm so pleased to see y'all's working dynamic as well. It's really beautiful to see. And so
Thank you.
I know that we're going to get to talk as a group, all four of us,
Yes.
very soon. The very last questions I have for you are, if you have a favorite book, or if you have a favorite book to add to our Stavis Wealth library, and also the worst or the best advice you've ever received.
I haven't looked at your current collection in the library, but
Sure. No, we are just, everybody that comes on the podcast, we basically ask their favorite
Yes.
book. Yes.
I would say there's a few I always, like, I could turn to and read all the time. Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
Incredible.
Just spoke to me on so many levels.
Yeah.
Dreams from My Father by Barack Obama,
Oh, yes, I have not read that yet. Incredible.
about his background and leading up to the first presidency. And there's a book called A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mistry.
Okay, great.
For a while, I was just drawn to Indian authors
Yeah.
and the books they were writing, and so that was one of them.
Incredible.
So I love all those books.
And best or worst piece of advice you've ever gotten?
I think the best piece of advice I've ever gotten was dress for the job you want, not the one you have.
Definitely. No, really incredible.
I think about that all the time before I'm going somewhere.
I discuss it with my mother quite a bit, and I'm excited. But it really does, setting your sights to what you want to achieve, always looking forward is the only way to get there.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I agree.
Well, thank you for the time today, Pooja.
Thank
I know we're going to loop
you.
up, but
Yes.
really an honor to get to just chat between the two of us.
I
Thank you
feel
for
the
being
same.
here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Pooja.
Welcome back, Legacy Ladies. We are
you.
going to
Thank
talk
you.
a little bit about entrepreneurs and family businesses, just to round it out. And I'm reminded of a favorite author of mine, Lan Danko. He's recently passed, but he's been known as the father of family and entrepreneurial business. And he speaks to the 5 stages or the life cycle of the business owner. The first cycle he calls the wonder years because it's so exciting and it's all new. But it's a lot of hard work, and sometimes you find yourself wondering why you ever did it to begin with. And then you get your rhythm, and hopefully you're not blundering, but you are trying to make sure that all the facets of your business fit together. And then if we're lucky, we hit the thunder years, where we've got a rhythm and it's kind of the golden age of the business. And then there are the plunder years, where you want to make sure you can keep it going the way it is. I mean, you've hit your stride, and making sure that someone succeeds you is really the key there, because the life of a business owner is, we're not immortal. So someone has to succeed us. And it's at that point that, less than 15% of family businesses pass on to the next generation, and it becomes the plunder years, where basically the business is on its way out. There may not be a vibrant sale opportunity, and there may not be a family member who wants to take it all on. So I know that we're both business owners, and so what are some thoughts that you have about succession and wanting to keep it going, and especially with an iconic Indian restaurant? It's not that every buyer is going to be in that market, although today probably they are. But can you speak to that a little bit more about succession and just your thoughts and general impressions?
Very good analogy you were giving about this, your favorite author. And I feel like we are in the plunder year, where I think we have done whatever it took to make it successful. And of course, there is never like a stop. We can work harder, we can take it to another location, become more successful, have many branches of Kiran's. But I feel like at my age now, I'm looking for Puja to take over and then decide what she wants to do. She wants to stay with this. She wants to take it to another level. She wants to bring in new people of her age to join in the business. Any of those possibilities can occur and the business can become even more successful.
And I just have to jump in because I want everyone to speak, but then you can rediscover those wonder years.
Yeah.
Right? Don't you feel that way when you have a daughter in the business who has the acumen and talent and experience now to do that? You can kind of experience the wonder years again.
I am experiencing to somewhat extent that even now when she gives me a new idea, new this thing, I said, oh, I wouldn't have even thought this would work. Oh, let's do it. Let's redecorate. Let's buy this new piece. Like on entrance, she just called our artist and she made another significant little art piece. Incredible. And it's still the letter K in Hindi, but she chose the colors, she did everything, and I think it added new element, new energy to the entrance. So I feel like the younger generation brings us something very exciting, and we can still be in the back seat and try to help them.
In our case, it's technology. Our business has transformed so much.
Yeah.
This one, Chelsea just picks up the tech and runs with it. And so she said, well, Mom, that may not be the easiest way to do what you were going to do.
But by discovering new ideas together, you can share in that creation together. And that's an exciting, new way to dive into the business.
Yeah. Like your mom was saying, that's like for me also the biggest asset I have is technology from her. I would be writing. I'll still maintain my old-fashioned calendar, and she'll put everything on Google Calendar, and it's right there. Or she'll say, Mom, open this Open Table app, reservation system. You don't have to call me and ask, how many guests are coming. You can see what time they are coming and who is coming.
You can see it. It's
you
in
can
there.
see it. You can be in your bed and see everything,
And you mentioned you like those Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, and they are so good at it, right?
Right.
They organize you so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Easier and faster.
Yeah.
But I think my mom is being very modest. She runs the show. I don't know if it'd be the right thing to call it the plunder years right now necessarily. I think she's saying that because maybe in her mind she's ready to take a back seat a little bit. And I think she thinks about that hypothetically.
Yeah.
Sailing off into the sunset.
Yeah.
But then as soon as a new challenge is brought forth, whether it's a cooking event demo in Houston, the opportunity to cook outside Houston. We've done some pop-ups in Mexico.
I didn't know that.
She's excited and running again, and I'm like, slow down,
Right.
And I'm having to rein her in,
Right.
Loving
so she's
things.
Yeah.
so she is excited and inspired and motivated every day. I think we are a little, and I'm gonna speak for you and tell me if I'm wrong in this. I think we're overwhelmed at the idea of succession, which
Interesting.
I think because unfortunately a lot of people don't think about it in a proactive way, and then suddenly they have to make a decision about something.
Usually it's right.
And then sometimes it's
Those decisions
it's
are taken
made
out
for
of-
them.
Yeah, exactly.
And there were opportunities maybe to exit when you should have exited, and you would have gotten the price you wanted.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so I think, for me, like I had mentioned to you, like I can't imagine running this restaurant without my mom. You know, she is the soul of Kiran's, and I don't even like being there without her. But a lot of guests say that, tell her that if something were to happen to you, we do see Puja running the restaurant. And I think if I had to, I would. I can't imagine just letting it all go. I can't imagine if, God forbid, something were to happen to her, then me just being like, well, we're done. I would. That's not the end I would want for this business.
Right.
And Puja,
Ever.
you're right. The word plunder has negative connotations, obviously. And what Landanko says is you're either going to hit a new stride and continue the thunder or go asunder. You know, the last potential phase where you miss that exit or you miss the opportunity to have a family member in the business. And so it's not, you know, all negative. It's really just that everyone gets that to that point where they're like, how do we make sure it keeps going?
Right.
How do we maintain the legacy?
Well, and I
that's been
think
built?
that's a big piece of why people see you as the future. You really have been present. They see you alongside each other. So, of course, who else would take on this mantle other than you? But I think that comes from comfort of your clients seeing you there, seeing you work with Kiran. It's apparent that nobody else could, you know, fill her shoes, but it's great that you have this time to work together to shape what you want the future business to be, even if you are a little less hands-on, you know?
And even if it means exiting the business, but giving it to someone while we're still at the top.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, and doing it at that moment.
And
that could also be the succession, the legacy.
Right?
And you mentioned that you had gotten some advice early on about succession. And what was that?
So I was telling you that one of our guests, I was just saying, I don't know who would I even think of giving, but Puja would be the one because she runs it and she has really, like as she was telling, like she would come and help me on the days I was struggling with payroll or some office work or doing something. And I'll say, I see her doing this, but I think I'll give it to her when, you know, something happens to me or when I'm old and I cannot still continue doing it. They say, why would you do it at that time when you cannot come to the restaurant or you're not there and you just hand it over? Where she'll think, what am I going to do with this business? And you should call her right now and tell her, join me. And that's really was my best advice. And I think that's going to help us even in future because I feel like she's already trained.
And she's coming into the Thunder years.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is your brand. Everything is so cool. Everything is changing and growing, and it's fun.
Yes. But, you know, we're always trying to do better.
Right.
You know, we can't take anything for granted. We can't take the repeat guest for granted.
Not sitting on laurels.
Absolutely not. You know, so just because we always want to be top of mind. We don't want to get stale.
How do you keep things fresh? How do you keep them from becoming stale? Both of you. What are those active things you're doing?
I think you think about different things you can do in the restaurant. For example, you know, now we have live jazz on Fridays. That's been nice.
Oh, yeah.
You know, her name is Tiana Hall, and it's her and the Houston Jazz Band. And so she's the vocalist, and she sings in one of those old-fashioned microphones.
Oh, fun.
You know, which she actually makes herself. And, you know, it's just soft, sultry music, just something nice to enjoy on a Friday evening, you know, after a heavy week. So, you know, guests will sometimes sit a little longer in the bar, you know, or just come have a drink and have a small bite. So you're thinking about different things you can do.
And you have a monthly wine dinner?
Yes. We try to do monthly wine dinners, and we mix it up sometimes by doing single malts. I think our next one we're going to be doing Japanese whiskeys instead of wine. We're going to do Japanese.
Actually, the Japanese have been number one globally for a couple of years recently, right?
Yes, for a
They
while.
are so smooth, beautiful whiskeys.
The Scots that are
Right.
doing it. The Japanese have been really talented.
But
great.
your goal, it seems, is always to not change up the business, but to come up with new ideas so you can give your repeat customers new and exciting experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
That's incredible.
Well, I know we'll be seeing you soon in the restaurant, and we're so grateful for your gracious time and talent and treasures today. And we look forward to keeping our relationship profound.
Totally ditto. We felt so happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Karen.
Thank you.
guys, for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you. Cheers to mothers and daughters.
Right.
Cheers to mothers
Here,
and
here.
daughters.
To
Yes,
mothers and daughters,
exactly.
yes.
Yes.